Hello, welcome to today's show. I'm Jacqueline Stockwell, CEO and founder at Leadership Through Data. I inspire and motivate information leaders across the world.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm super excited. I am actually physically in Australia, in Melbourne, for the RIMPA conference. And I'm here with David Robbins, who's going to join the show today. What's more exciting is that we're sitting in the same room, so we're not on virtual screens. So, David, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners today?
Yeah, hi folks. I'm David Robinson, Coordinator of Information Management at the City of Greater Geelong. I've been there for around 3 years or so now. So yeah, in beautiful Victoria, Southern State, mainland Australia.
And it's so lovely that I've been here 4 days now and the sun's actually come out today. So they say go to Australia because it's going to be hot. It hasn't been here.
And I'm from Ballarat, so Ballarat generally for Victorians is seen as cold and more sort of similar to British weather, I would say, Jackie.
Would definitely say it's a British weather right now. So I've come the other side of the world for sun and it's not arrived. But anyway, I'm digressing. So David, tell me a little bit about you as a person.
Oh gosh, I ticked over 40 years working to this year. My gosh, 1985, kicked off working junior file clerk, can you believe it? Back in 1985. Briefly worked at a hotel for 2 years, so very familiar with hotels and interest. But yeah, quite a seasoned experienced IM person.
Quite a seasoned, and you say 1985, that's the year I was born.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
Okay.
So, David, I today really want to talk about your journey into public speaking because you are now an international public speaker, and I've been working with you for a couple of years now just to kind of help you progress that. But one of the key things that I wanted to know for listeners is like, what made you think I need to focus on public speaking?
Well, really, Jackie, I had an original idea that I came with back in 2019. So I think that's what excited me, developing that and researching that. Did a body of work, and I just thought, I'm not natural presenting in publics, but I've got to learn how. And you did a magnificent course for RIMPA here on how to prepare for public speaking. So I'm still using some of that advice.
Amazing. And what was the scariest thing that you came across to stepping up to do that public speaking?
Well, public speaking was probably the second on my list for scary things. Okay. Proposing to my Peruvian wife in Spanish in front of her family in Peru, that scared the bejeebers out of me. So public speaking, with your tutorials, fine.
I love that because there is a really big thing about public speaking, and I think there's some statistics out there that says that people would rather die before they do public speaking.
Exactly.
So I think it's one of those big things. Now, so you talked about the scariness of it. I can appreciate that would have been scary for your wife in Spanish, and I'm assuming you did well because
I didn't
married
think I did,
now.
but she married me, so that was fantastic.
So how did you deal with those feelings of being scared in public speaking?
Look, with the course that I did with you, especially focusing on that you have to make sure you've got a plan for it, rehearse your speech, do things like I would have never thought of for vocal warm-ups, and I drink plenty of water.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work around feelings and also around how you can kind of manage those nervousness. And one of the key things that I will always tell everybody is that you should do, as you said, you prepare, warm up your vocal cords, but also do some meditative breathing because that can really calm your nerves as well. And if you get so sick, so the sick feeling, what do you do?
Take a moment.
Squeeze your butt. Squeeze your butt. So if you squeeze your butt and your upper thighs, that can actually stop that sick feeling. And it does actually work on hangovers, and it works on theme rides and car sickness as well. So
that sounds like British research to me. It's based on
Jackie's research. So how long had you worked in government doing the same way before you stood up and thought, well, actually, I need to change my messaging and I'm going to do that via public speaking?
Look, my experience working in government, I think public speaking is its own different thing. The experience that I had probably previously, I've spoken to about a maximum of 60 people in one session. No PowerPoints then, just with the overheads, slide things. But I think public speaking is its own definite thing. And I really identified with what you said earlier, that it is quite terrifying to be up there. But, you've got to get your message out there. And especially if I had an original idea, I knew I had to try and develop the experience, which I'm still developing speaking publicly.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen that progression for you for each of the sessions. And I think confidence really comes from doing it more and more, isn't it? So from your first public speaking experience, what have you learned from that experience that you now translate into your other ones to make sure that you improve each time?
I sort of had a watershed moment last year. Back in July, I had to deliver a eulogy for my mum because she'd passed. My older brother was a tradie, so he was no way he was going to speak. My young brother had a health matter at the time, so I had no option but to get up and speak in front of people. And it wasn't, there was about 100 relatives in the room and friends, and then there was about 300 people online. So I was very conscious of that. But again, practicing my script. And first time I'd seen myself recorded, and where I thought I'd stumbled, I'd gone, no, it was actually okay. So that then gave me a lot of confidence. And I think shortly after I did your course, which really sort of solidified it. But also for that first speaking engagement, I co-presented with a colleague, Sam Parker, who's very experienced presenting. So that sort of got my training wheels going. And then, just plunged in the US earlier in the year.
Yeah, and I think you've kind of articulated that really well. To do it with somebody else, to talk with somebody else, always eases you into that kind of transition, and that's the one thing that I would recommend as well. But it also gives an extra dynamic to the stage, I think, if you're talking with somebody else, because you can make it more conversational style, which can really help with relaxing those nerves. Now, as you know, one of the big things that I talk about is storytelling, and you have really sort of honed into that skill, and you talk about job crafting. Do you want to just explain a bit about job crafting, what that is?
Yeah, so job crafting, I was reading an article back in 2019. I was on the ABC, which is the public broadcaster here website, and it spoke about the article was when people find your work meaningless and how you can tailor it more to you. And it led to me with job crafting. So job crafting, we all do it. It's been just part of the human existence. We either think of it cognitively for ourselves, tasks or relationships, but it's that sort of psychology in there as well. And job crafting is just making it UK expert Rob Baker, he'll talk about when you get a jacket, you maybe want to tailor it to better fit you. So that's effectively what it can do.
Love that. Love that. So just looking at your LinkedIn profile, you talk about Project X, which is an award-winning naming convention project. Can you explain that in a really simple way, like to your child?
Yes. So that used a lot of storytelling in that regard. So it relates to, again, researching that particular project. I came up with Professor Bruner's research. There was a show called Adam Ruins Everything, TV comedy series. It was on a little bit where he explains real facts to actually behind particular things like the music industry. In this case, it was screenwriting. So Professor Bruner's research, he's a US psychologist, discovered there's people are 22 times more likely to remember facts when it's told in a narrative. I've got an interest in comic book stories. I do that as a hobby. So I thought, okay, I'll just create a story and blend in some historical facts, which is another person we're interested in.
Which I just think is a brilliant concept, that you've created an information management concept and put it into a comic, which a lot of people relate to. And then you did a movie?
Yeah, like the original plan was not at all to do a movie. Obviously, movies are stories as well. So I was leaning into that. The pandemic, a little thing called the pandemic broke out during that project. So we were suspended for 5 months. And we actually had a hall. The story was set in 1853. We actually had a hall that was around there at that time, planning to do a pantomime. Again, great British tradition. But of course, putting 60-odd people in a hall during the pandemic is not a good idea. So we had to create a movie. So that was a real challenge, but it really felt like project management 101. Okay, write the script, find the actors, give them a script. I should have given them a script a lot earlier than 3 months to learn. So, but yeah, that was I really enjoyed writing the movie script for that.
Nice. And with every good movie, you had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Exactly. So it's as I mentioned, like it's very, movies, I suppose, identify a lot with people. And that's what job crafting can do. It engages that, and storytelling engages the emotions. So often people can talk to hours about their favourite TV show, favourite movie. So it's in the job crafting and the storytelling combined. That's what I was hoping to do, so that the staff who were the target audience for the movie and the comic, they only had to remember the main characters, not to know it was about naming conventions and how to name documents in a SharePoint system.
Which I just love. And I love the fact that you have such a passion for history and you build that into information management. How do you do that, and why do you do that?
Well, again, I should have really been a historian. And I think I remember telling to you yourself, Jackie, I was born in the wrong country. I should have been born in Essex as well.
Go Essex.
Because you got history and stuff everywhere. But again, also I enjoy learning a lot about the Dreamtime stories and things that happen here in Australia, which are, again, good examples of storytelling, conveying the facts and the narrative. So I always try to weave history in any way, shape or form. And information management, or the record keeping that we do and we're trained to do, is helping those stories, because the historical figures, they have a beginning, they have a middle part, as you mentioned before, and they have an end. So we don't know. Someone could be as famous as you, Jackie, like you are now. So hopefully you're keeping this video as evidence, because it'll be really worth something.
Well, it's on YouTube and Spotify. So cheers, David. I'm very, very happy with that. But what I feel, because I feel like when people do public speaking, they have this, we need to change the narrative. And that's kind of what you've done, certainly with information management. Gone are the days where you can just stand up and talk about retention schedules just in that way. That what you are doing is you are bringing something that you're passionate about, you care about, and you're confident in talking about, and you're blending it with those concepts. And then what is then happening is when you're delivering your talks, you're far more confident and you can really deliver a really engaging and impactful talk. And I think you've blended that exceptionally well. So you and I were in AIM International Conference in April, which was super fun. So I think you entertained my ADHD brain there, David, didn't you? And we popped over to one of the hotels to see where the Hunger Games were.
A movie, a story.
A movie and a story.
We were living the dream.
We were living the dream, and we went up the escalator and down in the escalator.
If there's any kids watching, it is okay. Adults are okay to play in elevators as well.
But we weren't taped and we didn't run down the outside of it. So that was absolutely brilliant.
We weren't thrown scraps and then had to fight. And
no, we didn't kill each other. Yeah, no.
Thank God. We're just the fun bits, guys.
My point is, before we digress here, is that you're also speaking at RIMPA conference this week, and you're also speaking at KAMA. So that's the Kenya Association Records Management Association in Kenya. Now you've become an international speaker within a year.
Wow, yeah, September last year in Adelaide, I think. So why have I been interested in that? Like, I've got, from this week, I'm actually doing 6 presentations in 3 countries in 3 weeks on 2 different topics. So one of them is a brand new one tomorrow, so the latest paper. So I suppose it is a lot of, I would love to have all expenses paid, but the biggest investment you can make in your life, apart from a relationship, your house, your cars, is causing yourself and your career. So you've got to spend a little bit of money, but you're worth it to invest in.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And what's you talked about your professional development, you've talked about your investing in yourself, and they're one of the key things that I drive, certainly in this industry, with organisations cutting back budgets, and actually how can we drive information management forward if we feel like we're being stopped by organisational and budget constraints. But what is the biggest thing that has driven you to become an international speaker?
Oh, gosh, I've always been interested in other cultures, and this is a great way to combine my work. I've been lucky enough to have an original idea that's sort of led and opened the doors. But I think, I used to be very serious about my career, but I realised, wasn't necessarily going the way I would like it to go. But then when I started treating myself less seriously, that sort of opened up and I was able to tap into my creativity. But certainly getting the message out there and having a strong message, being a confident public speaker, I realised I have to do that. And it's out there, as you mentioned earlier, it's learned by doing. So,
and I think you're a huge role model in this, because you've at the start, you say you've been in it 40 years and you've had to adapt your style with the times. And we're very much having to do that in information management and as information leaders, even in privacy, cybersecurity. We're having to adapt with the space of technology and certainly with AI. And I think changing your messaging to actually get buy-in within the organizations isn't about this is who we are. It's about creating those stories and impactful engagement to really get that kind of buy-in. So what's the main message that you want to try and share with listeners around the world that are going to listen to this podcast today?
Oh, look, lean into your personal passions and bring them into your day job where you can. You'll be surprised how much creativity, and that doesn't necessarily have to be public speaking. In my case, I realized, well, I've got to get that out there, get that across. But, if you believe in the presentations that you're giving from your colleagues, they'll support you. Your managers will love it. Executives around the world are begging for fresh ideas to come through. And let's face it, information management, we're in the lower parts of the organisation. This is how we can get attention to our important messages. And again, connecting back to my strong interest in history, preserve that information and knowledge to make better decisions for our organisations.
Yeah, I think you're brilliant, David. I really do. So what is your next, I know you've got Karma and I know you've got RIMPA, but what is your next public speaking? Is it international or is it local?
Yeah, so it's a combination of both. Speaking locally here, this is my home state. And I think it doesn't really matter the difference between internationally and here. Being confident in front of 13 people and being confident in front of 300 people is the same. It's the same dots to be connecting. But I'm looking, my next thing that I'm looking into, I've been facilitating as a sandpit session, which is simply just practicing facilitating. There's a thing called liberating structures, which I encountered last year in the Adelaide RIMPA conference. And then I've been exploring that. And I just really see that for myself. Liberating structures, we get stuck with 5 big presentation ways so we have a presentation, a managed meeting like a council meeting, brainstorming sessions, status updates, and open discussion. So liberating structures adds an additional 33 methods to organise group interactions. And I'm seeing that as a vehicle that I can use to unlock more creativity with job crafting.
Which I just love. I mean, I think to be in our industry, we have to be creative. We have to innovate, think outside the box and just bring our authentic selves like you do using history. In my book, I talk about public speaking and sharks. I love sharks. I love Australia. I completely value them. I fear them, but you can start to talk about the things that you're interested in. What is the most rewarding part for you for being an international public speaker?
Oh, gosh, I'm certainly meeting as many different people as I can. I genuinely enjoy chatting with people with their experience, what they have, and just learning about people. I suppose I have a genuine interest in that regards, and it's great to have the opportunity to also go through with a career in records management and share my knowledge and experience. We all learn a lot from these international conferences and that. And it's great to have that opportunity with support of RIMPA. Karma's also supporting us to go across to Africa. So I think that's the most interesting thing, and hopefully inspire some people around the world with what was an original idea of mine.
Certainly, because I think one of the biggest things is, we might all live in different countries, but when it comes to records management, certainly Australia is a principle following the sun. So your standards and your application of records management are, far greater than the ones in the UK and versus the US. So you can just follow the sun around it. And I think it's really useful that you can tap into different countries and share your learning, share your best practice. So you can learn from other people's mistakes. So you don't do that yourself. So what's one thing you want the listeners to take away today?
Just as I mentioned, tap into those personal passions, and that'll unleash your creativity. If you're not confident of doing that, there'll be members in your team who will give them an opportunity. If you've got staff reporting to you, get them involved. Programs like Jackie's is fantastic for giving you that confidence. As I said, I wasn't naturally outgoing and confident as a younger worker. Please don't leave it as long as what I did after 40 years working to unleash your creativity. But we're going to make records management fun again. That's what I say. If we're having fun, that'll naturally flow to your audience and inspire the other staff in your organisation.
100%. So fun. And when you think about sharing a concept with your organisation or anybody outside, think about articulating it how you would to a child, an 8-9-year-old child. What language, what words would they use or understand? What languages would you use, words you use that they would understand so that you can explain that? And they're the kind of concepts that we really need to start driving through public speaking. David, it's been brilliant. And thank you today. And it's been so nice to have the podcast like face to face. So it's been amazing. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Journals of the Information Entrepreneur with me, Jacqueline Stockwell. I hope you found this episode inspiring and helpful and have some takeaway tips that can be useful to you. If you liked this episode, please like, review and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more information leaders to stay inspired and listen to great content. Want to test out your strengths and weaknesses and measure it against our Empower framework? Please complete the scorecard. It's a great way to improve and evaluate your skills. You can find the scorecard at the end of the description of this podcast. Stay tuned for a new podcast every Thursday, and remember to be bold, be brave and be beautiful.